If life is feeling messy or extremely stressful right now, usually what happens is we either push through it and get busier with life so we don't have to feel what's going on, like a lot of distractions, or we can deal with what's going on and slow down. Sometimes we slow down because we are so fucking exhausted and depleted of energy. But either way, when these really big events, turmoil, stressors, people passing away, breakups, all these moments are an invitation for us to slow down and look at what is in front of us. Like, I never learned to listen to my body, migraines, the aches and pains, the shakiness. I always just pushed through and got busier so I didn't have to deal with anything. And I would get busy going out with people, go out drinking, dancing. Any distraction was good for me until I was forced to deal with facing my mortality. And I was sick and didn't know it. And don't get me wrong, I was working on myself at this time and my healing journey, which kicked off in 2009, even though it was super messy. But it's never a straight line. There's hiccups and setbacks, and we pick ourselves back up. But that was when I really started to wake up to the fact that I had more control over my life than I thought. That I do have the option of saying no. I do have the privilege of improving my life, and that I do have a say in who I allow to stay in my life and who I welcome into my life. And this healing for me didn't all happen at first. There was a lot of fucking trial and error. I mean, a lot. And just where I'm at now is that I hope one day my children, who are both adults with their own children now, but I hope and pray that they can look back on my journey and see that I was just barely surviving. And my trials and errors were really just a redirection for me, which obviously influenced my family. But my hope is that my trial and errors, that they can look and think, some of it, damn, I don't want that. And maybe they can see some good things. They think, damn, I want that too. But in navigating relationships, I look back on every person that I have been with, been friends with, acquaintances with, and I've received healing and redirection through all of those relationships. For me, the way I'm seeing these relationships that didn't work out showed me what I don't want in my life, mainly. And they also helped show me what I want for myself. The relationships I had that were tumultuous and were constantly arguing and fighting, we were just in our egos, and our egos were driving the ship, not our hearts. Because when we're fighting to always be right, that isn't communication. That's like a temper tantrum. And I think from a young age, we've always had this inside of us. I mean, for myself, in learning how to navigate my life and learning what I actually wanted for my life, allowed me to grow out of this stage and learn how to listen, and listen to people without thinking about how I'm going to respond. listen to what the person is actually saying and listen to them to make connections. And also to really listen to the content and see if I'm hearing truth or if they're just telling me what I want to hear. And like, this wasn't easy at first when I started learning about this. It took a lot of concentration and I failed a lot too. But what happens when we do get on this path and start to find healthier ways of navigating our life, this allows us to choose healthier relationships. And I don't just mean love relationships, friendships, acquaintances, work relationships too, all of it. I was born with a dysregulated nervous system. I've had high anxiety all of my life up until I started to work on healing it. My anxiety was so bad that sometimes it would sneak up on me while I was doing what would be a simple task to a lot of people. Was a lot of work for me, and that was grocery shopping. The noises in the store, the lights. I'm still sensitive to this day to artificial light, and it actually gives me migraines. But I'd be grocery shopping, and then all of a sudden the store would feel like it was closing in on me. And the voices and the music and the sound of grocery carts would all be completely amplified, and it would overwhelm me to the point that I had to leave the store. There was this one time, I remember it vividly, where I actually felt like I was going to die. My chest was tight. My heart was beating so fast and hard. I could feel it when I put my hand on my chest. My breathing was shallow and fast. I was so terrified. And what made it even more terrifying was that I didn't know what I was scared of. I felt the same fear that someone would feel if they were being chased by a bear. I had to leave my shopping cart full, and in the middle of the store, I raced to my car and called my partner, bawling my eyes out, of course, because I just couldn't handle the noise or that environment. I felt in that moment that I needed somebody that I trusted to come and save me. And while this worked in that moment, I wouldn't say worked, but it gave me a bridge to safety. I realized that this isn't sustainable. I got to a point where I was like, I need to learn how to care for myself, not reaching out to other people all the time. Because what if someone's not available and I'm left stranded? This realization took me into the era of healing my nervous system. And this wasn't the only incident that led me to wanting to heal. There were many, because I was a fucking master at escaping my own feelings and leading into the things that fueled chaos in my life. And chaos felt comfortable to me. It was like if there wasn't something big happening in my life, life didn't feel right. And I was choosing partners that weren't good for me until I ended up seeing someone who actually helped force me into my spiritual journey. And this partner was just as dysregulated and unhealed, if not more, than I was. Not that there's levels, but now that I look back, some areas of his life were just completely evil. And I won't go into the whole story, but this partner ended up being charged with extortion. And at the time I was dating him and not using my discernment, not listening to my intuition, he asked me to send an email to his ex-partner. And after a lot of coercion on his part, I agreed. Well, I ended up getting arrested and taken to jail, and I spent the whole day there. And this was the single most horrifying, terrifying day of my life. It was in the jail cell that I had this incredible moment with myself and listened to my heart that said, this way of living is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And I can't imagine how my children are feeling right now. I just remember crying and asking the guards to please let me go home. I just want to see my children. And I kept saying it over and over and over again, and asking the universe to please save me from this situation. And while I knew I was being supported by higher powers, I also knew that it was only me that could save me. And there's many, many details to that year of my life that maybe I'll make another recording just for that incident and that time. But this was the catalyst that kept me moving forward. I never fucking wanted to be there again in my life. I never, ever wanted to be with someone like that again. So I realized at this point that the universe was redirecting me. And I listened. And I realized that I needed therapy to help keep me accountable, to help me learn new skills, and to help me understand why I was making these decisions that weren't good for my life or my children. And a lot of it was that I realized that I didn't even like myself. I was holding grudges against myself for decisions that I had made up until now. I hated myself and regretted staying in a marriage that was so unhealthy and dysregulating for my children. And I constantly held myself accountable for that. I was still hanging on to all of the insults and things that were said to me while I was a young girl in school. And I was still navigating life as a young girl. When really, now I'm an adult and I have the power to control my life. And that was what I had to learn, that I had control over my life. I had to learn that I can make my own decisions and I don't need approval from anybody, including my parents, my grandparents, friends, to live life in a way that is healthy for me and my children, and to stick to that. And that's what I did. I started with small steps. Some of them are kind of silly now that I look back on them. But at the beginning of my spiritual journey, I knew a few women in my life that were deeply spiritual. And so I started to try and be like them. That was how it started for me, was embodying physically where I wanted to be. I started wearing all the pretty hippie clothes, wearing patchouli, wearing clothes that would help bring in the feelings that I wanted to feel. And quite honestly, this really helped me. I thought of it kind of like when you're playing a part in a theater play, you dress the part. So I dressed the part, and I still do sometimes. Back then, I felt like I had to, though, and it really did help. Then I started to read about healthy ways of living, and that led me into holistic health and learning how to care for myself, my spirit, my body, cleaning up my diet, pulling away from friends that were dragging me down. All they wanted to do was go and drink, go to the bars, stay out late at night, feel like shit the next day. And this didn't all happen right away, but it was something I was working on. That part of it was really hard for me to pull away from because I love to dance and I love live music, but I didn't like the drinking scene. Fast forward from 2009 and in between up until now, 2025, I have a calm nervous system. My triggers that led into nervousness, anxiety, don't happen nearly as often anymore. And when they do happen, I'm able to pull myself out of those moments quite quickly. I don't feel that I was just healing my own nervous system, though. Along the way, and reading and researching, I've learned that our DNA and genetics go back 7 generations, and that nervous system wiring is passed on to us by our mother and our ancestors. So, in learning about my parents' past and understanding that all of this anxiety and dysregulation wasn't all mine, some of it came from my lineage. Now my focus is on helping my children and grandchildren see that life can be lived in a different way. It doesn't have to be as difficult as we make it. Without forcing, I hope that I can lead by example. I hope that I can pass on what I have learned and what was helpful for me to those that I connect with. I guess just understanding that everybody has their own unique background. We don't know what they're going through. My parents, your grandparents, your siblings, your partner. I would imagine some people looked at me, and I've actually heard this from people, that they thought that I had my life together, so to speak. But really, they thought I was living my best life. I was barely surviving. You just don't know what people are going through. And I think you know you're healing when you begin to accept people where they are and stop pushing them to be where you want them to be. Instead of trying to change them, blame them, be willing to share how you're feeling in a respectful way and be responsible for your own limits and boundaries. Your needs are valid, and it is ultimately our responsibility if our needs can't be met. It isn't found outside of us. And that was what I had to learn. So it is possible to heal through whatever it is you're going through. It just takes slowing down, writing